What's up, guys? Wow. What a night. What can you say after all that? So, let's jump right into it. Let's jump into what happened in that main event. Before we get into the whole brawl that happened after the fight, let's talk about what happened inside of the fight. Well, Khabib beat Conor McGregor 3 minutes and 3 seconds into the fourth round. And like I said in my prediction video, and as many people said, this fight is not going to be close. Whoever was going to win this fight was going to win pretty dominantly and destroy their opposition. That kind of happened in this fight. There were, I think, 210-8 rounds for Khabib, but Conor did win the third round. It was a very close round. Khabib was striking with Conor a lot more. But can we talk about Khabib striking? Not his technique as much as his speed has improved. A lot of people are saying Conor looked pretty slow out there, pretty sloppy. But when you look back at it, I think it's more that we were surprised by Khabib's speed. He was able to get to Conor, even with his strikes, faster than Conor was able to react to them. Right? That's why the right overhand landed. But this also had to do with the takedown threat. Khabib always had the takedown threat, and he was able to outstrike the striker. He did this before with Edson Barboza. It's not that he's a better striker, just plain and simple. He has better striking when takedowns are implemented. Because takedowns implemented into the game really throws off the timing of opponents, and Conor had a very hard time timing Khabib's entry shots, either if they're takedowns or if they're punches. Khabib was landing jabs afterward. He landed that right overhand and gave him massive confidence to stay standing with Conor. And when he threw the right overhand, you could see Conor was looking to counter him with the left overhand, almost the exact same punch he tried to catch Chad Mendes with when Mendes threw his own right overhand, and it looked like it hit Conor, but hit his shoulder, and Conor landed the left overhand over the top. He was going for this. He was going for the exact same punch. But Khabib was fast, and it seemed like Conor for a second thought it was going to be a takedown, because there were several times throughout the fight Khabib was faking the takedown and got Conor backing up, and Conor was reacting to them. Khabib's game plan was very smart, but he stayed standing a lot longer than many of us would like him to. But again, he looked fine on the feet. He got hit by a couple left hands, and his chin has been answered. He has a good chin. He took some shots from Conor, ate them, and kept walking forward. Never stumbled, never rocked or anything. Conor was rocked badly. Khabib landed the first knockdown in Conor's career. And that's crazy to even think about. That's insane to think about when you think prior to the fight. Khabib is going to knock down Conor? Yeah, right. He did. Conor's timing was way off, and I think the speed of Khabib really caught Conor off guard, and I think the speed of Khabib had also to do with the fact that he came into this fight lighter than he usually does. Look how low he weighed a week before the fight. They said that this is the lightest Khabib's ever been before a fight, and maybe that had to do something with his speed, and if it did, it showed to great effect here, and I am very impressed with Conor's takedown defense in that first round. Conor is very strong in the first round. He's fast in the first round. He's powerful. His takedown defense was pretty good. Khabib had a very hard time getting that takedown, but what did I say in my breakdown video? Khabib has bad shots in open space. He doesn't normally get them. Same thing here. He had to initiate the takedown just to get Conor working right away, because he had to get Conor away from 100%. And that was his answer to do it. I'm just going to shoot in right away on him. And Khabib, when he shoots for that takedown, he doesn't drive. That's why he isn't amazing in open space with those takedowns, because when he shoots, he crashes. He doesn't shoot and drive like Chad Mendes. He shoots and crashes to the ground, and then he works again. You have that period of time where you can work some defense on him when he gets your leg and he crashes. Right there, you can work something, and that's what Conor did, and he was successful with it. Conor looked like he went to throw a knee, but didn't land. Khabib grabbed onto the leg. He was trying to get Conor down. Conor was trying to hit the switch. He kept balance very well. He was trying to keep himself from getting on the bottom under Khabib at all costs. So he was wrapping around Khabib over the top, and Khabib had a very hard time just getting Conor to the ground in that first round, but eventually he did, if I remember correctly, because it was craziness. I'm not going to remember everything. Khabib, I think, then transitioned eventually to the cage into a double leg, and then got Conor down, stood above him, and what did you notice Conor doing? He kept trying to pulse with both hands and try to climb up the cage. Khabib wants you to do that. This is almost the exact same thing Edson Barboza did, and what did Khabib do to him? Breaking down his pulse, breaking down his attempt to get up, and this is continuously gassing out the opponent, landing shots afterward, and this happened to Conor. Conor gassed out after, I believe, the second round. He started to really show signs of fatigue, and also him getting rocked in the second. I believe had to do something with that. But in the second round, after Khabib took down Conor, it was a savage beating on the ground, man. It was bad. He landed hammers on top of Conor, talking trash to him. Khabib did everything he promised. He did everything he said he was going to do. The press conferences, the weigh-ins, when he's going to show up, what he's going to do to Conor in the cage. He's going to talk to him. He's going to pretty much little brother him and all that sort of stuff. He did everything he said. Everything he said. And those ground and pound shots, hammer fists, and especially those punches when he's stacking on top of Conor, those had really bad intentions. And I'm very surprised Conor took all those shots. There were a couple times where you could have probably stopped the fight in the second round, but it's very good that they kept it standing because Conor did win the third round, so it shows he was still in the fight. He landed some shots on Khabib. He landed a good jab on Khabib, which I think was his best shot. And there was one left hand when he backed Khabib up. But Khabib took everything. Nothing affected him. And there was another thing that happened in the first round. It actually happened in the beginning of every single round, which confirmed to my breakdown was Conor was always going to be the aggressor in the first minute. He's always going to be the one to pressure Khabib backwards because Khabib, he's a mover. He moves a lot. And Conor, he stands his ground in the beginning of the rounds. And that looked troublesome for Khabib, but then again, Khabib just shot. And once he shot the first time, Conor's cardio went down. After all the pressure, after all the ground and pound in the first round, Conor didn't look exactly the same in the second, but he wasn't completely gassed out. The second round really did him in. He looked very tired, and Khabib in the third round stood with Conor a lot more, throwing jabs, exchanging with Conor on the feet, which is such a dangerous thing to do. Besides Nate Diaz, Khabib's the only guy that was able to do that, and he actually beat Conor on the feet if you look at the overall picture of the fight. Fourth round came, it was just, that was bad. Took Conor down again, those single legs, Conor just wasn't fast enough to get away. Khabib was faster than Conor in pretty much every aspect of the game. His hands were faster, his takedowns were faster than Conor was able to defend the takedown. Him covering the distance was faster than Conor was able to cover or create distance. The scrambles on the bottom, Khabib was faster than Conor. And what was always a knock on Khabib from some experts, some analysts, Khabib was not that fast. That's what everybody kept saying. Khabib is not that fast. His footwork isn't that fast. His hands aren't that fast. Maybe because of the takedown threat, maybe because of the weight cut, it was very easy on him. He was faster than Conor tonight. And that is kind of crazy. And Conor's coming up from featherweight. Khabib's way bigger than Conor. And he's able to outspeed him. If a bigger guy's able to outspeed you, that's troublesome, man. Because everybody believed Conor was faster than Khabib. And that was going to be the biggest advantage for Conor with his footwork, able to get out of distance really quickly, land the left hand really quickly, fast jabs, fast teeps. None of that was there. Everything, he was doing all that, but it was all a lot slower than what Khabib was able to do. But Khabib was able to take Conor to the ground, and there was one position where Conor was kind of on his side, and Khabib was on top of him. He was looking to see what Conor would give him. What are you going to give me, Conor? Are you going to give me your back, or are you going to give me into full mount on top of you? I mean, Khabib's pressure, his transitions, his ability to force opponents to get into positions, it's crazy. It's crazy how he does it. Even guys like Conor, Edson Barboza, and Michael Johnson, everybody he fights, Rafael dos Anjos, he does it to the best guys. And he little brothers everybody he fights. Minus maybe Gleison Tebow. But that was a while ago, and there's a bunch of factors because of that. And he eventually got Conor's back. Conor gave him his back, and he got him in a neck crank, and Conor tapped. Which, in the end of the day, Khabib said Conor will give up. That's pretty much giving up, right? If you're tapping from a neck crank, that's giving up due to the pain or something in that. Or just you lost. You know you lost. To a bunch of people saying Khabib doesn't finish, he just finished Conor. This was not going to a decision. This was going to be a finish. There was no way this was going to a decision. Because eventually, if it got later to the rounds, Conor would gas out. Everybody knew this. At least most people knew this. There were some people who were making the absolute craziest backwards analysis on this fight, on the way Conor fights and the way Khabib fights. There was no way Khabib or Conor wasn't going to finish this fight. So this is amazing from Khabib. 27-0, but he lost a round. It's not the biggest deal in the world. To say that about someone, he actually lost a round and celebrate it, that just shows how great that fighter is. He lost one round in his entire career. Not even Floyd Mayweather can say something like that. And we're talking about MMA, which is a lot harder to win rounds. But then again, boxing does have more rounds, which makes it harder in that aspect. Khabib's first round was the third round to Conor McGregor. But Khabib, after this fight, you have to say he's one of the greatest. He's one of the greatest. He's 27-0 in the highest level of MMA. And this is MMA. This isn't boxing, right? Boxing, we all know it's a lot easier to keep winning. In MMA, there's so many ways you can lose a fight. You can slip up. One mistake and it's all over with those 4-ounce gloves. And there's a lot of openings because of different martial arts. Khabib's not one of those guys. He's never lost. And he's beaten some stellar competition. Now, people saying Khabib's never fought anybody. He just beat Conor McGregor, who everybody's talking about how great his resume is, and it's amazing. But now Khabib has that guy under his resume. Now let's talk about what happened after the fight. I wish it didn't happen. It does not catch me by surprise. I saw some fan reactions in the audience just to see what actually happened, who was fighting Khabib and who was fighting Conor. But I heard some of the fans' reaction during those videos. They seemed like confused and surprised that Khabib would do something like that. I'm not surprised at all. I wish it didn't happen, though. It's a black eye on the sport. It takes us back to what New York was saying about us, or about MMA, and what everybody was saying that MMA fighters are all savages and they're thugs and all that sort of stuff. This is not a good example to show that we aren't that, or MMA fighters aren't that, because Khabib came out there, he finished Conor McGregor, jumped the cage and went at Dylan Dennis. I have no idea why he went at Dylan Dennis. At least to our view on the outside, like, Dylan Dennis has nothing to do with this. Khabib went straight after him. He jumped the cage. Well, first of all, what happened was he was all pumped up and Khabib looked fresh. He didn't look gassed out at all. Khabib's cardio is amazing. And for those people, like I'm talking about, that said Khabib would gas out in this fight, I'm sorry, that's laughable. There's no way Khabib was going to gas out in this fight. But Khabib got off Conor and started marching in the cage, threw his mouthpiece at Conor's corner, but he threw it against the cage toward Conor's corner. And then Dylan Dennis started edging Khabib on, like, bring it on over here. Khabib obliged. He jumped the cage and jumped at Dylan Dennis. He kind of double hammer fisted him on the way down. And then it got broken up. There wasn't really anything else going on there. There was a lot of security. There was like 50 guys there, 20, 30 guys there to break it up. Some of Khabib's guys were laying shots on Dylan Dennis and a couple other people. But with Khabib, he got broken up really quickly, away from the pack. Now, what does this also say? Khabib reacting in this manner. It has to say that Conor did get in his head. Is that a bad thing? People always say that getting in your head is a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it can motivate you. Sometimes it can really bring the fire under you. Because the ground and pound he was landing on Conor, and he was talking to Conor too, and all the stuff he was doing, he was standing with Conor for a long period of time. You have to say that it did get under Khabib and got him fired up. Because I haven't seen him land those kind of ground and pound shots in some fights. You can say fights like Edson Barboza and Michael Johnson, but this is different. He was laying the hammer on Conor. And then jumping the cage and all that sort of stuff. All the things Conor was saying about his dad and about his country and how his people are trash and rats and how he has a weak jaw, and he talked about his brother and a lot of personal stuff. Khabib had enough of it, went after Dylan Dennis, and jumped into Conor's team. And you have to know all the fans are pro-Conor, most of them at least. Pretty ballsy by Khabib to do that, I'm not gonna lie. After fighting for almost 20 minutes straight, coming off that fight immediately and jumping into another fight with a group of guys by yourself, but some of Khabib's guys were there, but he jumped in by himself. To be honest, that's kind of gangster. I mean, it looked like something out of Rambo. I mean, he just got finished in this fight, finished this guy, and he wants more. He jumped into a crowd by himself. I mean, it's kind of badass, but I don't like it though. I don't like it. I respect Khabib in a sense, almost like in a street cred kind of way, almost like a person. Like he was that brave enough to do that, something like that, to potentially get beat up by a group of guys. I know there was security there and they were going to break it up, but still, you're putting yourself in the fire out there now. You got to give him some respect on that level. As a martial artist, not really. The whole Bushido thing, you can't give him respect for that because, yes, Conor did say a lot of things. He said a lot of things, and the best thing to do is turn the other cheek, I guess, after the fight, because he already settled the fight. The fight's over with Conor, but they both elaborated that this fight is not over, even after October 6th. And they are both taking it to heart. And I understand it. I understand what they're doing. I understand why Khabib did that. It did not catch me by surprise. I understand that these two have bad blood and they're going to try to get at each other any way they can. Not the right thing to do. I do not endorse this. I do not like that he did this. It's very bad for the sport. It's very bad for the company. It's very bad on Khabib's image. But he doesn't care about any of that. At the end of the day, he's an honorable man. He wants respect back, right? And he feels like his honor was disrespected. He's a very humble fighter, usually. This is the only time we ever seen him like this. And in the weigh-ins with Abel Trujillo. But everything else, Khabib has always been a very humble fighter. Until you disrespect him on that level. Until you talk about his dad, you talk about his people, you talk about his brother, you say that his people are backwards, you make fun of the Muslim faith. These guys take it very, very seriously. And I understand that. Personally, I'm from a community that would do the exact same thing. 95% of the people that I know from the same community would do the exact same thing. So I understand it, but I don't endorse it. I don't like that he did it. There's a time and place to settle these kind of stuff, and when you're doing it in front of all the audience, all the eyes on the sport, I mean, this is one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, UFC card of all time, and there's going to be a lot of eyes here. And Khabib chose to do it in front of millions of people. Is that the best thing to do? No, because you're tarnishing the brand that you're fighting under. You're tarnishing a lot of things. Maybe he doesn't care, but you're still doing that. You're disrespecting a lot of people by doing this. But he's at the heat of the moment. Michael Bisping was talking about it, I believe. He's in the heat of the moment. He understands, and all fighters will understand. Because sometimes you can't control yourself. After a fight like that, after you just smashed the guy that talks so much trash about you, and the guy you've been targeting for like 2 years, you just smashed him, your adrenaline's at an all-time high. I'm going to talk about Conor's side, but on Khabib's side, at the end of the day, I respect him on that level, not as a martial artist, but just as a person to stand his ground, mainly because I do understand it. I know a lot of people that do the same thing. The way we were raised over here, the Albanian community especially, would do a very similar thing. They won't... Talking about someone's family is almost like forbidden. I'm not saying for me, but people I know. For me, I don't care. If someone says anything about me, I don't care because it's just noise at the end of the day. But I know people that do that and disrespecting someone's faith and things that they would die for. And Conor saying that Khabib would die, he would be dead to him if he got off the bus and all that stuff. And he tried to jump Khabib on the bus and he brought in like 30 guys, 20 guys to jump with him. And he smashed the windows and all that sort of stuff. That is just as bad. Don't get me wrong. That is just as bad. But with the context of all the people watching, what Khabib did is actually bad. And he caused friendly fire or collateral damage to a bunch of other people because of this. The action itself, they're about equal. You can actually say Conor's was probably worse if you just say what Conor did and what Khabib did. Not what Khabib's partners did, but just what Khabib did and with just what Conor did. Conor's, you could say, was a worse action because he actually hurt somebody. I don't think Khabib hurt anybody besides Conor in the cage. Other than that, he didn't hurt anybody else. Conor actually hurt Michael Chiesa and Ray Borg, and he shook up Rose just by his action alone. But Khabib caused collateral damage, which you can say is more threatening or hurts more people than what Conor actually did. And you can't respect at that level. He wants respect, but then he disrespected a bunch of people. But I do understand why he did it. Now, Conor, on the other hand, what happened to him in the cage? Well, he tried to go after Khabib when Khabib jumped the cage. You can see Conor, he tried to go at the cage and he tried to jump over it himself to go after Khabib, but everybody pulled Conor away. Conor's probably concussed a little bit. He just got choked out or tapped to a choke. And he's gassed, right? He's very tired. So a bunch of people pulled him back. And what happened was, when he tried to get up, and Khabib's, I don't know his name exactly, but you can see him on some of the Anatomy of a Fighter videos. This other Russian guy that's always with Khabib, close with Khabib, right? He tried to jump the cage as well. And Conor was actually the first one to throw a punch. He threw a punch at that guy. That guy had nothing to do with Conor. He wasn't doing anything to Conor. Conor actually threw a punch and clipped him. So Conor, you could say, actually started it in the cage. In the cage, he kind of started the whole scuffle there, because he hit the first guy. But then Khabib's other people jumped Conor. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Tukugov, who's also a featherweight UFC fighter. I think it was him. It was kind of hard to see. But I think he landed some blows on Conor. Like, he hit him clean with some shots, and that's terrible. And I think, pretty sure I'm getting some of these guys wrong. It could be anybody. It was such a far view. It was hard to see who was who and who was hitting Conor. The focus was so off Conor sometimes. But Tukugov and some other guy, I believe, hit Conor pretty hard. Pretty clean. Some of them sucker punches. That's terrible. He shouldn't be jumping Conor McGregor. He shouldn't be jumping at him. He just got in a fight, and that's just wrong. But Conor should not be hitting other people. I understand him going after Khabib's guys, because Khabib's going after his guys. I can understand Conor going after Khabib's guys in retaliation. It's not right. This whole vengeance stuff, it's not right. But he started it in there. He hit the first guy in the cage, and he got jumped for it. So guys, Conor is not a victim here. He's not a victim. All the media is like portraying Conor as some victim in this whole scenario, but I just think they don't know what happened there. I don't think they knew that he threw the first punch. He's not the victim. But people are making this bigger deal on Conor's health than he is. Conor, Dana White said, Conor doesn't care about the scuffle after the fight. He cared about what happened in the fight, because he got beat down, pretty much humiliated. After all the trash talk, after all the Floyd stuff, the Nate Diaz stuff, everything he built up, it crashed down hard in this fight. And that's what he's most upset about. Michael Bisping put it perfectly, and this is exactly what I was talking about. People made such a big deal about it. They're fighters for a reason. They think differently than the normal people. People are, yes, Conor got hit, that's so wrong. Yes, it is wrong. But he's not going to care about it that much. He just lost on the grandest stage there can be, in front of millions of people, in an embarrassing fashion. Right? He got clipped on the feet, something that nobody thought would happen. And that must strike his ego in some aspect. The grappler with quote-unquote trash striking who swings from his hips. Just caught the quote-unquote best striker in the UFC. I never thought Conor was the best striker in the UFC. I always thought he was one of them. I always said Stephen Thompson or maybe a prime Anderson Silva was always the best striker in the UFC. But a lot of people put that label on Conor McGregor and he had to live up to it. And now what just happened? That's what he's more upset about, and understandably so. I don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to strip Khabib? The only way they're going to strip Khabib is if the commission suspends him. I think it's the only way they're going to strip him. I don't think the UFC would ever strip him themselves because Khabib's a star now. He's going to bring numbers now. He just destroyed Conor McGregor on the grandest stage of all. And he was a pretty big name. He was always a name lingering Conor McGregor for a very long time. Even guys like Max Kellerman, I know they don't know anything about the sport, but them just mentioning names to the casual fans it does so much. He talked about Khabib back in UFC 205 about the guy that can beat Conor McGregor. And it just happened. Khabib is not just some guy that just bursted onto the scenes to beat Conor. No, he is a dominant force and he always has been. So to strip a guy like that, I don't think they should do it. I don't think they will do it. I know what he did was wrong, but at the end of the day, it's a money business. If you're looking at a business point of view, just a business point of view, I don't think they should be stripping Khabib. If you're looking through a moral lens, maybe you can. Maybe you should. Because stuff like this doesn't normally happen. And it's a very bad image for the sport. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. If he gets suspended, he's going to get stripped. Is he going to get suspended? I think he will, but I don't think he's going to get suspended that long. So maybe he will keep his belt. Maybe he'll be suspended for like a couple months to the point where it doesn't matter because he's not going to take a fight for another, several months. He just got paid. I mean, Conor, they're saying he's going to make like $50 million if it gets 2.5 million pay-per-view buys. How much is Khabib going to make? Khabib's going to make, I'm pretty sure, 8 figures as well. He's getting paid. So him losing stuff, everybody knows he's a champion. At the end of the day, he's an all-time great mixed martial artist. He's an undefeated force in mixed martial arts. He is the champion. If he has the belt, if he doesn't have the belt, he's the real champion, right? The 3 guys at the top of the lightweight division, Khabib, Conor, Tony Ferguson, 2 of them just fought. Khabib just won, and he won the belt before this. So people saying he had a fake belt, he just legitimized it in front of all of them. So he is the official real champion, whether he has the belt or he doesn't. At the end of the day, that's how everybody's going to view him. This whole thing is going to blow by. People are going to forget about it. At some point, people are going to forget about it, and they're going to miss Khabib. Very similar to how Conor, when he did the whole buzz thing, everybody hated Conor, right? Terrible for the sport. He's the worst thing that ever happened to the sport. What happened a couple months later? We miss Conor. We want to see him back. We're so happy he's back. Same thing's going to happen to Khabib. Right now, everybody's going to bash him. Everybody's going to talk bad about him. Yeah, I do it. I don't endorse what he did as well. I don't think it's a great thing. But we're all going to miss him if he gets suspended or if he doesn't fight for a very long time. And Josh Thompson, before this fight, he said Khabib might retire because there's nothing left for him. He's going to get paid, and he stands for something different than just making money for himself and all that stuff. Right, he lives with his parents, he's from Dagestan, and he just got paid in this fight, and he wants to make a difference behind all of it. And Josh Thompson said Khabib might want to get into politics and stuff where he can make more of a difference. So this might have been the last time we ever seen Khabib. I haven't looked at any of the interviews. I don't know if Khabib talked. I don't know any of that. But this might be the last time we ever see Khabib, and this actually might be the last time we ever see Conor. I don't think Conor's going to retire, but there is a possibility there. And what's going to happen after for these guys? Who are the matchups? Who are the future matchups? For Khabib, Tony Ferguson or GSP. That's it. Nobody else is fighting Khabib unless he wants to go up to 170. He can do it, man. But it has to be either Tony Ferguson or it has to be GSP. That's it. There's nobody else for him to fight. Conor McGregor, now that's the more interesting question. What is going to happen to Conor if he doesn't retire or if he doesn't walk away for a long time? Tony Ferguson is an option if Khabib gets stripped. That's an option. Of course, they're going to keep Conor to keep fighting for the belt if it's possible. It's a very tough fight for Conor, man, especially what we saw tonight. Because if Khabib's able to do that to Conor, and Tony Ferguson also has a wrestling game, he doesn't use it a whole lot, but I would have to think he would use it against Conor. It would be a very smart thing to do. But again, it was very smart for him to do it against Pettis. He didn't do it. If he stands with Conor, I see Tony, he can probably get caught at some point. We saw him get caught by Anthony Pettis. A very weird combination that Tony Ferguson actually throws, but Conor could catch Tony. But Tony has this physicality about him and this onslaught that Conor would probably not keep up with. But it could be Conor and Tony next if Khabib gets stripped, and that's only if he gets stripped. If he doesn't get stripped, Tony fight's not happening. I see Conor fighting Nate Diaz. That's it. I see the most logical fight being the winner of Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz, or just Nate Diaz in general. Nate is probably the target because that's always going to be a money fight. Now let's talk about the co-main event. Tony Ferguson beats Anthony Pettis after the second round due to an injury. I think Anthony Pettis had a broken hand. Pettis looked really good in the first round. I did expect Pettis to catch Tony Ferguson at some point. Maybe not dropping him. I didn't think he would drop Ferguson, but I did know he was going to catch Tony sometimes because Tony does get hit. He has an amazing chin. His recovery is something out of this world. I mean, this guy gets hit. He's never dazed. He gets hit and then he's right back. He's right back to his senses, and you saw that immediately. Okay, so Anthony Pettis threw the front kick to a lead right hand. I think it was a right hand, but the same side. This is actually a combination Tony Ferguson lands. He landed it a lot on RDA. Pettis took a page out of Tony Ferguson's book, landed the same combination, and dropped him. I think Ferguson didn't expect the punch. He didn't expect the follow-up. He expected the kick. But when you don't expect the follow-up, that's the one that gets you down. Tony Ferguson got caught, dropped, and then Pettis landed another overhand right. Hurt Ferguson again, but then Ferguson went for the leg immediately after Pettis went to the ground. I mean, Ferguson is able to lock you down on top of him better than anybody I've ever seen. And Pettis couldn't do anything on top. Anything. He couldn't land any offense. And can we talk about Pettis' hands? Remember the point before this KSF fight? His hands didn't look that good. It looked like he was always hesitant to throw them. Not anymore, man. He's throwing some heat now. He's throwing overhands, left hooks, left uppercuts, and they're all coming with devastating power. He's better off fighting like this. Tony Ferguson landed like a Superman punch off the cage. I mean, this is a wild fight. This is probably the best fight in the entire card in terms of back and forth. But Ferguson, man, when that second round came and Pettis could not put him away, Ferguson marched him down like a juggernaut. He did not keep off Pettis. Volume, long punches, jabs. That left hook was landing constantly. There was a point where Pettis was covering up and Ferguson was just throwing hammers at him from a distance at the end of the second round. I mean, he was letting off on Pettis. And Pettis went to the ground eventually, and Ferguson was throwing these hammer fists like he was some Terminator. Like, there was no footwork. It was just him standing in front of him and throwing his arms at him with all of his power. Turns out Pettis broke his hand. I don't know if it was his arm, but they were saying his hand. Maybe he landed a punch wrong on Ferguson. That happens a lot. I mean, he was throwing pretty hard at Ferguson, so maybe something landed at the top of the head, crushed his knuckles or something. I don't know what it was, but it's a good win for Ferguson. The momentum shifted from Pettis to Ferguson at the end of the first round and carried it on into the second round throughout the entire round. Good win after that layoff, and his leg looked fine. I'm surprised Pettis didn't kick it that much. Right? I would have been targeting that leg a lot more, but Pettis just wanted to be wild in there. He loved the entire fight. Ferguson and Pettis, they loved that fight. They went off on each other with everything they had. Ferguson has to get a title shot. He has to get a title shot. You can't deny the guy anymore. 11 win streak in the lightweight division? That's crazy, man. That's absolutely crazy. So next is a title shot no matter what. Has to be a title shot. Especially that Conor lost, so the Nate fight is not going to happen for a title shot. It's Tony. For Anthony Pettis, it was a good performance, man. It was a good performance. He dropped Ferguson. He struck with him in that first round. Just doesn't look too great for him now. There's a lot of good fights for Pettis, but to be honest, I don't see Pettis staying a lot longer in the sport. I have a feeling he's just not going to stay that long. He's getting injured left and right. He's taking so much damage in the later parts of his career. Who should he fight next? I would like to see him fight Alexander Hernandez or a Dan Hooker. You could do maybe Justin Gaethje, but actually I like the Gaethje fight. So Pettis versus Gaethje, or I would do Pettis versus Hernandez. And then we go to Ovince St. Preux versus Dominic Reyes. This is a pretty good fight. Dominic Reyes showing some amazing striking prowess. Ovince St. Preux looked pretty lost in there a couple times, especially in that first round. He was getting caught. Dominic Reyes' left hand is like a sniper. I mean, he's able to land it every single time he throws it. And the story of the entire fight is Dominic Reyes' redirectional striking. He's able to make you think he's going one way, he goes another way, and he's creating momentum for a punch. And that's exactly what he did. Ovince St. Preux was chasing him down, and especially in the second and third round, but at the end of the fight, he chased down Dominic Reyes. And Reyes was moving back into the cage. OSP got trapped to the cage because he rushed too much, and Reyes created an angle on him. As he moved out that direction, redirected with the left hand, put Ovince St. Preux into the stratosphere. OSP was so out of it. They could have counted that as a knockout. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. We all remember what happened. It's a win at the end of the day. And we all know what happened, so knockout decision, whatever. He put down Ovince St. Preux. Dominic Reyes is a real force in this division. I mean, to do that to someone like Ovince St. Preux, I did say OSP in the prediction video that he has taken a lot of damage in his career. He's been dropped many times, especially in the latter part of his career. He's been knocked out. I mean, he's taking a lot of damage, and Reyes hits like a sniper. I'd like to see a lot of fights with Dominic Reyes. He's the prospect of the division. I'd like to see him fight Jimmy Manuwa. That would be an excellent fight. Or even Jan Blachowicz, if you really want to put Dominic Reyes up there. For Ovince St. Preux, I would like to see him fight Glover Teixeira. They're both pretty much in a bit of a slump in their career, and they're both veterans. I would love to see that. And then we go to Derek Lewis versus Alexander Volkov. I love Derek Lewis, man. Everybody loves Derek Lewis. Not only the fight, the post-fight interview may be the greatest post-fight interview I've ever witnessed. I mean, can you be more real? Can you be more authentic than Derek Lewis at that moment? So Derek Lewis knocks out Alexander Volkov. 4 minutes and 49 seconds left of the third round. There was 11 seconds left of the entire fight, and Volkov dominated every part of it. I don't know the scorecards, but I could probably see some 10-8 rounds in there. I mean, he put it on Derek Lewis. He hurt Derek Lewis multiple times, jabbing his eyes, stunning him with left hands, throwing some body kicks that hurt him early in the fight. I mean, this was so one-sided. Like I thought, I predicted that Volkov was going to do exactly what he was doing, but throw more kicks, body kicks especially. But keep it at a range where Derek Lewis can't cover it, and just go to work by picking at Lewis. Something you can never predict is that Derek Lewis comeback. How many times has this guy come back after losing a fight? Travis Brown, he was losing. I mean, so many fights he was losing. Marcin Tybura, I mean, these are some recent fights. Now Volkov always comes back late in the fight and ends it with one shot. His heart and his power is unquestionable. He probably doesn't have that great of cardio, but he will push himself because of that heart. He will push himself beyond his limits. I mean, he crashed to the ground after and he didn't get up for a while. He pushed himself to the absolute limit, even past that, just to land that one shot he needed the entire fight. He was missing it left and right. Volkov was keeping that distance. He was being the more technical striker, the most skilled striker, but his chin was there. He was taking all the punches. He pushed himself and eventually chased down Volkov, and Volkov did something. It was an instinct of his because he is such a longer fighter compared to everybody he ever fights. He tried to create distance with the knee, stuck himself inside a space, lifted his knee to create a barrier for Derek Lewis. He's going to throw a shot over the top and catch you. One shot, that's all it took. And land some ground and pound. Volkov went out. Derek Lewis is a monster. Does he deserve a title shot? Absolutely. Volkov is as good as it gets. Volkov is one of the elite guys in this entire division. This knockout loss is terrible, especially with the damage that's going to come after this and how he's going to perform after this. Is he going to be completely detoured in his other fights? I don't know. But if he isn't, he's still a top 5 guy. A legit top 5 guy. Derek Lewis may have cemented himself as the number 1 contender. I mean, just through these comebacks, this is crazy. Even if he fights DC, I think DC would beat Derek Lewis pretty handily. You can't count out Derek Lewis. You can never count him out against anybody. I don't think he's going to get a title shot, though, because of the whole Brock Lesnar thing. He should. He deserves it. I think they're going to put him up against Stipe Miocic for a title shot after this whole Brock Lesnar stuff settles. I like that fight. Derek Lewis versus Stipe, that's a banger, and I could actually see Derek Lewis winning that fight. And then for Volkov, I mean, how a discouraging loss is that? How a frustrating loss is that? You're winning the entire fight against the number 2 guy in the world, and then you get put out by one shot by a huge mistake you made. He let Derek Lewis cover too much space. He gave him too much space to work with. But for Volkov, I'd love to see him fight Alistair Overeem. That would be an amazing fight. JDS, another amazing fight. Then we go to Michelle Waterson versus Felice Herrig. Not too much to really say about this. I mean, after all that happened after this fight, there's not much to say about it. It was a decent win for Michelle Waterson. She was the faster fighter, landing those high kicks especially. Herrig taking all of it. Once she got Herrig to the ground, you saw the dominance. So, great win by Michelle Waterson. She's the number 8 fighter, so I can see her fighting Carla Esparza. That'd be an amazing fight for Felice Herrig, who is the number 7 ranked. And then for Felice Herrig, I could see her fight maybe Nina Ansaroff or Atisha Torres or something. There's not too many options for them too, because Herrig beat a lot of fighters under her, and the fighters above her are right above Michelle Waterson as well. So nothing makes too much sense. Maybe Angela Hill, number 14, would be fine for Felice Herrig. Then we go to Sergio Pettis versus Juicio Formiga. Pettis didn't let his hands go too much. Formiga winning by a decision, of course. Getting the back of Pettis. I'm not a fan of what he did to win the fight, But it's part of the game, man. You got to get that takedown defense. You got to get that scrambling ability. So no one can do that to you. I know it's frustrating because I picture myself in Pettis' position. And I'm like, do you know how frustrating that would have to be? That someone's a figure 4 around you on your back and you're standing. There's almost nothing you can do. You have to kind of sit there because if you risk anything, you have to risk though. You have to risk something. At that point, you're risking yourself getting submitted because if you go for the legs, there's a choke. But Ronda Rousey did it, but then again, there wasn't a figure 4. Unpeeling a figure 4 is so much harder than just someone having your back. But it's a good one for Juicy Formiga. He's able to get Pettis down. Pettis was winning most of the striking. Formiga, again, he wasn't throwing a whole lot, but neither was Pettis. I'm surprised Pettis didn't throw more than he did. But good win for Formiga. For Formiga, I would like to see him fight maybe Ray Borg. I actually love to see him fight Joseph Benavidez, who's coming off a loss, but he's a higher rank. Formiga is number 5 rank, and Benavidez is number 3. I mean, this flyweight division, everybody's beating each other. It's kind of crazy. No one's establishing themselves as the number 1 contender besides Johnson because he just lost the title, but he's injured. For Sergio Pettis, I would actually love to see the DJ fight. That's the only fight that makes sense for DJ other than Cejudo. But how can you reward him a higher ranked opponent than Formiga after he just lost the number 5 guy? So for Pettis, if you're not going to give him DJ because maybe DJ wants Pettis, that's the only way Pettis is going to get DJ. But I would love Sergio Pettis versus Davison Figueiredo. That would be a banger. Then we go to Vicente Luque versus Jalen Turner. Vicente Luque winning by knockout in 3 minutes and 52 seconds of the first round. At the end of the day, this was too early for Jalen Turner to fight a guy like Vicente Luque in your debut. That's savage, man. That's a disservice to Turner. Because Vicente Luque, he is not a pushover. I think he only has 1 loss in the UFC. His record tells you something different. But his UFC record is insane. He knocks out everybody. He's doing pretty well. He's doing very well. Knocks out a lot of guys. Very dangerous fighter for a guy like Turner, especially in his first fight, man. So great win by Luque. He was able to counter the spinning elbow. He got caught by it, but didn't do anything. Just do some right hands as Turner was spinning, ran right into the right hands, dropped him, and the stoppage was a tad too late. It wasn't the worst stoppage I've ever seen, but it was a little late. But it's a great win for Vicente Luque. I think he deserves a ranked opponent, so a Gunnar Nelson would be amazing. I would love that fight, or even Alex Oliveira. Those 2 fights would actually be so exciting. Just imagine those 2 guys, Nelson or Oliveira, going at Vicente Luque on the feet. That'd be wild. And for Turner, I don't know, man. That's his debut. He just came off the Contender Series. Anybody will really do at this point. If we go to Aspen Ladd versus Tanya Evinger, Ladd winning by knockout or TKO. First round, 3 minutes and 26 seconds. Aspen Ladd looked like she was having some trouble on the feet. She doesn't look too great as a striker, let's be honest. But her pressure and her strength and her ground and pound is scary in the 135-pound division. She could do this to anybody. Stylistically, if she can pressure someone like even Amanda Nunes, who if you do pressure her, she will expend a lot of energy, especially if she gets Nunes to the ground. Someone like Ladd, the formula that she brings is a very good formula to fight someone like Amanda Nunes. And she's getting there. I mean, she's the number 9 ranked. She just beat Tanya Evinger, who's a veteran in the sport. And the ground and pound she brings it's scary. It's absolutely scary for these fighters. I would love to see her fight Kat Zingano. That would be an amazing fight. They have a very similar style, actually. And for Tanya Evinger, I don't really know who she should fight. I mean, she hasn't been doing too well in the UFC. Anybody outside the top 15 makes sense. And then we go to Scott Holtzman versus Alan Patrick. Now, I told you guys in the prediction video to keep your eyes on this fight because Holtzman was too big of an underdog than I thought he would be. I thought Alan Patrick would probably win because of his explosiveness and his wild striking would eventually catch Holtzman. And to be honest, I kind of missed it, but Holtzman, what I saw from some of the highlights, he looked like he was able to pressure Alan Patrick back. He was able to keep it as technical as possible, but he was putting a lot of output on Patrick. So it's a good win for Holtzman. On the prelims, I missed all the prelims except the Gray Maynard versus Nick Lentz fight because they replayed it. Man, that's tough to watch. I'm a Gray Maynard fan. You know, I've always liked Gray Maynard. He was at one point the scariest guy in the lightweight division. I mean, that guy had some power that nobody else had. And he had the wrestling to go with it. I mean, look what he did to Frankie Edgar. The third Frankie Edgar fight ruined him. He was never the same. I think it broke his confidence as well as broke his chin. After that, he got destroyed by Nate Diaz. I mean, these are bad losses. And then Nick Lentz just put it on him. He couldn't take any of Nick Lentz's shots. Lentz just kept on top, landing ground and pound, and just put it on Maynard. Maynard couldn't really do much to Lentz. So it's a good win for Nick Lentz. So those are my reactions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. What did you guys think of what happened? I'm very curious to see what you guys think. I mean, it was a great night of fights. At the end of the day, were you not entertained by all this? This was such an entertaining card. The craziness, the technique, the skills, the back and forth, the comebacks, the knockouts, the ninja-like attacks, the bad blood. I mean, everything was on this card. And I hope it broke records. I hope it broke the pay-per-view record. For my next video, I'm going to break down one of the fights on the card. Be on the lookout for that. And on Tuesday is going to be my podcast, so be on the lookout for that. I'm going to elaborate on a lot more things. You guys can ask me questions about all this stuff, and I will answer those. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.